So we're over here at the Jeep. Let's take a look at the front end for just a second. And so you can see the stock track bar. In my opinion, that worn track bar is probably the key component that contributes to death wobble. The track bar's job is to keep the front axle centered under the Jeep. Death wobble is an uncontrolled oscillation of the body of the Jeep relative to the axle. Sometimes that comes from the track bar being loose or that worn bushing on that end, but most likely this ball joint style end here at the frame, once that becomes worn, there becomes play in there and allows uncontrolled movement, and that contributes to the oscillation that then escalates into death wobble. Add in other worn steering components in the steering linkage itself, in the ball joints, in the end links. All of this is designed to work as a system. Once that movement starts, it's difficult to get it back under control. So I'll show you on the Dorman unit, but it converts from this ball joint style end here at the frame to a bushing style end like is here at the axle. That eliminates the play and movement that you often get as this joint wears. Okay, at this point I've got the steering linkage removed. Next I'm going to work on the track bar. So this bracket will mount here, and where this bolt is, we'll have to drill a hole through this frame track bar mount. So that part will require some space. So I think having the steering linkage out of the way will make that a little bit easier to get to. So the next step is to get this track bar out. Okay, I got the stock track bar taken down to give me room to work to get to the nut up here. Also went ahead and disconnected the sway bar end links. I'm going to be replacing these anyway, so just getting that out of the way gave me a little bit more room to work there. To get that stud to come out, like I said, it was probably the original track bar, so I had to use a pickle fork to finally get this to separate. Where this bracket is going to fit, where we're going to drill the hole, this L that's cast into the mounting point is going to be in the way, and it prevents the bracket from sitting flush, and it's going to be right in the way for where we want to drill the hole. So I'm going to have to come in here with a die grinder and clean that up, get that flush. Then we can put the bracket in place and use that as a guide for drilling the hole that we need to drill. Okay, not too bad. You can use a variety of things. I used a Dremel with the carbide cutting bit to grind off the L that was cast here into the bracket. So now that this is nice and flat, we can put our bracket into place. We'll use this bolt to get it lined up and tight, and then we can use this as a guide for marking and drilling the hole that we need to drill up here. Okay, fast forward an hour. I've got the hole drilled. I will warn you, this is no easy feat. Number one, this cast iron is very thick and so difficult to drill through. It's also a tough angle to get a drill in here. The bottom of the crankshaft and the bottom of the lower radiator hose are sort of in the way. I wrapped some electrical tape around the bottom of the radiator hose just to make sure as my drill was spinning, the head of the drill was very close to rubbing on that, so just to make sure I didn't rub a hole through there. When you're setting this up, before you drill the hole, the bolt that goes through here, torque that, I believe it's 65 foot-pounds. I double checked the instructions, but I believe that's what it was. That will help make sure this is fully seated before you drill the hole, because you don't want this moving around afterwards, because that came with a lot of work. Now we're ready to install the bolt that goes through this side, and then this bolt gets tightened to 55 foot-pounds. We're ready to install the track bar, put the frame end up and with the bolt that goes through it. And then over here, you can see that here on the axle end. This is still just loose at the moment. We can adjust the length once we get this to rad height. You may also notice I went back to the stock hardware with the bolt that Dorman provided, even with the spacer. Let's see if you can, yeah, you can kind of see the opening in there. I couldn't get a wrench on that to get it tight. So I just went back to the stock bolt with the flag nut. With the vehicle at rad height, obviously right now it's up on the lift, but with the weight of the vehicle on the front end, so it's at rad height, go ahead and torque the track bar bolt here at the frame and here at the axle to 55 foot-pounds. Then adjustment is made there from the adjusting sleeve. With that loose, you can just twist the adjusting sleeve one way or the other to lengthen or shorten the track bar, which will move the axle side to side under the frame of the vehicle. I picked an arbitrary spot from the axle to the frame. So obviously its suspension is drooped at the moment, but at normal rad height, I can measure, I just picked from the grease fitting here on the ball joint to a spot on the frame, and I measured that distance on both sides of the vehicle and adjusted the track bar until that was even. And then I tightened up the adjusting sleeve, and the torque spec on those bolts is 35 foot-pounds, I do believe. Dorman gives you a nice sheet here. Track bar, adjusting sleeve, yeah, 35 foot-pounds.